what role have you seen the area of sports play in the overall development of young people?
Athletics helps really develop the whole person. It's not just the competition, it's the IQ, it's the commitment, it's the ability to collaborate with other teammates, it's the discipline that's required, it's the family support, it's showing up for other people. It's so much that goes into creating the right environment for athletes to thrive, to be able to bring themselves without fear that they're not good enough. That's a huge thing. Obviously, the athletes have to contend with.
We are joined today by the incredible Rochelle Harris.
Rochelle Harris is an assistant athletic director and head girls basketball coach at Mayde High School in Houston, Texas.
Rochelle is actually entering her 22nd year in education, and she has dedicated her career to helping students grow both in the classroom and through athletics.
Rochelle Harris is very passionate about developing young people into confident leaders while supporting coaches and athletic programs across the school community.
The biggest lessons that I try to teach kids when they're an athlete is emotional intelligence, first and foremost. The world of athletics is really, really intensive. Everything is almost life or death. Wins and losses dominate.
The wider view that you're talking about, you realize how much what's happening in practice might be more important than what was happening during the game.
You know, we're building leaders. How do you handle the world around you when it doesn't seem to go your way? And how do you serve those around you without always expecting an immediate return in what you're doing, but knowing that if you are doing what you need to do to serve the community around you, you're going to get something back.
Welcome back to School on a Mission, everybody. Andrew McPeak here alongside the always thoughtful, always insightful Gina Watts. Gina, how are you today?
I'm well today, thank you, sir. And I would like you to tell my children and my husband that I'm always thoughtful and always insightful.
Somehow that message didn't get through to them? I don't know.
I mean, some days, but always, the clarifier of always is critical. So
it's very, very important. Very, very important.
And I'm so glad to have everybody with us today. We have a great episode coming up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, folks, if you believe that schools should be more than just essays and GPAs, if you believe that EQs are just as important as IQs, and if you expect amazing things from the next generation, then you are in the right place, because we believe that too.
And this summer, School on a Mission, we're highlighting incredible people and organizations who are helping students to thrive beyond the traditional classroom. We're talking with leaders who are investing in young people through mentorship, leadership development, wellness, athletics, community programming, and other spaces that help shape students into healthy, thriving adults.
Absolutely. Because, of course, Gina, we know that student success is about so much more than academics. It takes caring adults, meaningful experiences, and opportunities for young people to grow both inside and outside of the classroom.
And today's guest knows a thing or two about that. We're excited to introduce you to her in just a moment. But first, it's time for our question of the day. Are you ready, Mr. McPeak?
I'm always ready. Let's go.
You tend to be. All right, so here's the question. What is one lesson you learned through an extracurricular activity that has stayed with you into adulthood?
This is a good one. I am sure every listener could go, oh yeah, there was that time, right? And I had several. I think for me, the one that stands out when I look back over extracurriculars, and it's especially relevant to our conversation today, was when I tried out for the soccer team freshman year of high school. Mm-hmm. And I played soccer my entire, literally they put cleats on me at 5 years old. And I played all the way through middle school. And I kind of thought of myself as pretty good. I wasn't expecting to make the varsity team, but I was like, you know what? I've been playing for a long time. I'm pretty good. We're good enough. And so I did absolutely no practice, absolutely no conditioning, absolutely no anything before tryouts.
You were like, I'm messy
there.
Before messy. Like I'm just gonna,
I just rolled in there in August thinking it was going to be no problem. And so did the tryouts. I didn't really think anything of it. You run around, you kick the ball, all those kinds of things. And then lo and behold, Gina, they put up the list of the people who made the soccer team. And on that list, I'm reading like every name of every other kid who was there, but mine's not on the list. I think it was me and one other kid were the only two who didn't make the team. And it was such, obviously, devastation, but it was such a key moment for me to recognize the importance of preparation, right? Of recognizing that, but also of assessing who do I actually want to be and what efforts am I making to be that person?
Yeah.
Because honestly, one of the things that happened is I realized I was disappointed, more embarrassed than disappointed, oh man, now I don't get to play soccer. I realized that was not as much of a passion as it was something that I had just always done. And so it actually enabled me to ask, what do I really like doing? And I started chasing some different directions and finding some stuff I really did love, but I never lost that memory of the importance of preparing for the things that you actually want to do. So, yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. What about you, Gina?
Some of our listeners, I think, definitely understand where you're coming from, but also they're thinking I should probably have my child listen to this part of the episode because of how many is just a lot of different people I come across, young and old alike, that I don't have to prepare for that thing. It's fine. Yeah. Fine. Yeah. Okay. So for me, I'm going to try to keep it brief, but I was a cheerleader for 6 months. Yes. And it's not because I'm a quitter, because I actually was raised in a household where you are not allowed to quit things. And I've raised my children like that too. Even if you don't like it while you're in it, you got to finish it and then you can move on, right? So my son Christian played one intense season of baseball. He was so great at it. And his coaches were like, this is a sport. And he was like, but it isn't. Peace. And they were so devastated that he didn't want to keep playing baseball. And honestly, he's so naturally gifted. I wish he would have kept playing baseball. Okay. So it's a little bit of money there. But anyways, back to me. So I was a cheerleader for 6 months. Why was it 6 months, you ask? I'm glad you asked that question. Because I tried out for cheerleading when there was a change of guard. So there was a family that had led our cheerleading in our school district for decades. And the lady retired from the family that had led it, and it went to another person. So this person says, I'm going to bring in real coaches from college level. They're going to evaluate you and we're going to have a for real tryout. Well, here's the thing. The reason why I say for real is because these young ladies were used to being cheerleaders for the school district from birth. So it was kind of like you become a cheerleader and you're going to be a cheerleader forever. So we have these tryouts. And they were annoyed by it, but they were like, we'll just go through with it because you're still going to make it. That's how the parents are telling the kids, you'll still make it. Well, guess what? They didn't make it. And so Gina and a couple of her friends, we became the newbies, and people were devastated. Now, here's the thing. It's not funny that people were devastated. They were used to a way of life and they, grew accustomed to it and they wanted to be cheerleaders. And I was like, I'm trying out because I want to show that I can be a cheerleader, right? So I try out, become a cheerleader, and I quickly realized that even though I gave my best effort and I actually loved being with my friends, who I'm still friends with many of them today, I did not like the environment. And I'm not saying this of all cheerleading. I'm saying of this particular situation. It was just so intense because of how everything happened. Parents were fighting over the silliest things. So all of the girls that actually didn't make the cheerleading squad, because at that time we were all ladies cheerleading, they got put back on. It went before the school board and everything. So we lovingly became called the herd because there was so many of us. There was 40 cheerleaders. 40. It's crazy. So we became the herd. They had to have a whole bus just for us to go to football games. crazy. And I cheered the whole football season. I cheered over the summer. We did like competitions and stuff like that. Basketball season gets ready to start, and I'm missing my teammates in basketball because I had decided I wasn't going to do basketball. And then as basketball started and the chaos kept rising in the cheerleading world, I was like, I want to go back to basketball. And my mom was like, we don't quit things. Well, she came home from a boosters meeting, a cheerleading boosters meeting, and she's like, well, we spent about an hour fighting over whether you were going to have megaphones or pom-poms on your socks. And I was like, oh, that does it. Can I quit? Can I quit now? Because why did you spend an hour talking about that? So again, I love all those ladies. I love their parents. Just wasn't that deep to me. And similar to you, I guess, I just realized it wasn't as important as I thought it was. It was more about the process that I was going to show that I could become a cheerleader. And also I went to a very homogenous school. So like I was the one. There weren't any cheerleaders of color. There might have been two of us, but it was a big deal. It was also a big deal to become a cheerleader and a person of color. So what did I learn? I learned that I could do hard things for 6 months.
You learned a lot, is what it sounds like.
I learned that I could do hard things for 6 months, and I'm grateful that my mom changed her mind about the quitting.
She was like, you're not supposed to quit cheerleading, but I'm definitely quitting these parents.
And ironically, I refer to my mom as my number one cheerleader. It's fine. It's fine. I just, the things you learn.
It is a perfect picture, though, because I'm sure someone somewhere, like many someone's listening to this, are laughing about how real this actually is, right? Not only the insane moments that we find ourselves in, but how often some of the most important life lessons that we face happen outside of traditional academic settings, right? When we say school, it carries so much more weight than just what happened in math class and science class and all those things. So I feel like that was a great setup for today's conversation, Gina.
It was. So today, friends, no, we are not joined by any of my friends from my cheerleading squad in high school, but we are joined.
What if we were? That'd be crazy.
That would be crazy. But we are joined today by the incredible Rochelle Harris. She's assistant athletic director and head girls basketball coach at Mayde Creek High School in Houston, Texas. And we're excited to have her here in the studio with us. Listeners, I hope that you're ready to take notes as Rochelle shares about the impact athletics can have in students' lives.
Rochelle is actually entering her 22nd year in education. And she has dedicated her career to helping students grow both in the classroom and through athletics. She is passionate about developing young people into confident leaders while supporting coaches and athletic programs across the school community.
And in her role as assistant athletic coordinator, Rochelle helps oversee multiple athletic programs and serves as a connector between athletes, coaches, families, administrators, and the broader community. She is a strong advocate for building cultures of excellence, service, and meaningful relationships that help students thrive both on and off the court. And she probably would have told me, don't try out for cheerleading. Okay, sorry. I'm going to be done. I'm not going to talk anymore.
Well, listeners, one of the things that stood out to us is about Rochelle, and you guys will see this immediately, is she is somebody who sees athletics as much more than competition. It's a place where young people learn confidence, leadership, resilience, and how to become the kind of adults that communities truly need. So we're so excited. Rochelle, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Welcome to School on a Mission. So here's where we want to start. Rochelle, you've shared some things with us as we got ready for this podcast. And one of the things you shared is that your father's love for sports and service was what first inspired you to enter the work that you're doing now. So as you've spent the last 2 decades serving students through athletics, what role have you seen the area of sports play in the overall development of young people?
Well, from my experience over the last couple of years, I say that, athletics helps really develop the whole person, right? It's not just the competition, it's the IQ, it's the commitment, it's the ability to collaborate with other teammates, it's the discipline that's required. It's the family support. It's showing up for other people, learning to show up for yourselves. It's so much that goes into creating the right environment for athletes to thrive and just to be able to bring themselves without fear that they're not good enough. That's a huge thing. Obviously, the athletes have to contend with. I'm not as good as this person. I'm not as good as that person. I practiced, but I still didn't get this. Those kind of conversations happen often. But just developing the whole child, developing the whole person is the biggest benefit, I think, from athletics.
So good, so good. And in what ways did I mentioned your dad? I know that's something you told us about as we were getting ready for the episode. In what ways did your dad pass on that kind of love for sport for you? In what ways was that an inspiration?
So my dad first introduced me to sports. He was instrumental in taking me to different sporting events. He was in the military for 30 years. And so I was lucky enough to grow up in Europe. And even to be in Europe, he took me to all kind of sports just because he had such a passion for it. And while we were there, he would talk to me about, the business side of sports. He would talk to me about the commitment athletically. He would talk to me about managing a whole person as a coach, serving as a coach, and just things like that. And so those conversations that we used to have, it just piqued my interest to, first of all, play sports myself because it's just so exciting, right? People cheering for you, you being the game-winning shot or you being the hero for the day or even you being the support that somebody else needs for your team to do well. It just piqued my interest so much that the moment I had the opportunity to pursue it on my own, I went headfirst into it.
It's so often that, I think as adults, we get to reflect back on the things that our parents did for us or took us to. And even if we did appreciate it at the time, it's often in that reflection as adults where we're like, oh no, I see what they were doing, right? And your dad it sounded like you guys had a lot of great memories.
Yeah.
Learning together about through sports and service and leadership. Thanks for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
You've had a front row seat to watch students grow over time. And, there's a variety of life skills that, you probably intentionally impart upon the students. And then
Yes.
maybe some that kind of happen organically.
Mm-hmm.
What are maybe some of those leadership traits that you on purpose are trying to see them develop? And maybe if you have an example of a student or a way that played out for you.
So I think service before self is a huge one. And I know that it's not always clear how that applies itself to the sport or to the world of athletics, but with all of the team dynamics associated with athletics, you have to be able to meet the needs of the people around you, in your community, on your team, in the building that your school is housed in. And with that comes an element of selflessness and just teaching children and teaching adults still. We're still learning these lessons the same. That, if I do something for somebody else, there's another person that's looking to do something for me as well. And then the ball just kind of keeps rolling that way, right? The biggest lessons that I try to teach kids when they're an athlete is emotional intelligence, first and foremost. The world of athletics is really, really intensive. Everything is almost life or death, right? Wins and losses dominate everything that we do. And so there has to be a perspective of everybody can't win. There's often more times that you lose than win. There's only ever one champion. But how do we conduct ourselves in the process? How do we handle the disappointment with that? How do we cope with an outcome that we may not have been prepared for? How do we treat the people around us in those situations? And how do we come back better? That's a huge thing that we try to impart into, our athletes and even me as an adult into the coaches that I have to serve. Making sure their emotional intelligence is where it needs to be so that their value is not placed on the outcome of whatever it is that they're involved in, but that they find real value in the process of who they become along the way. And I think that's important for any arena outside of athletics as well. You know, we're building leaders, we're building doctors, we're building teachers, we're building future politicians. How do you handle the world around you when it doesn't seem to go your way? And how do you serve those around you without always expecting an immediate return in what you're doing, but knowing that if you are doing what you need to do to serve the community around you, you're going to get something back.
Ooh. You can drop the mic right now if you want to. That was good. That was
Thank you.
really good, because I think so much of the time, especially in like our kind of like hyper competitive parent culture that
Yes.
happens a lot, is like
Yeah.
you got a lot of people listening to this who see athletics as sort of just the stuff we expect to see, wins and losses, and did my kid get enough playing time, and so many of those other kind of nonsense things that it often becomes. But if we could have the wider view that you're talking about, you realize how much what's happening in practice might be more important than what was happening during the game
Yes.
in a lot of cases. So I just really appreciate that perspective. I want to talk to you about coaches, though, because you influence not just student athletes. You definitely are influencing them, but you're also influencing other coaches. And
Yes.
we know that the best coaches often become so much more than just X's and O's, right? So much more than just coaching the sport that they are. They can become mentors, trusted adults, even influential voices in students' lives and the directions that they take. So how do you view that responsibility, both for yourself, but also when you're developing and pouring into other coaches and helping them see the impact that they can have on students beyond just the game itself?
Yeah. So, you know, in the world that we live in now, you're able to make money in 1,000 different ways, right? And now that's kind of infiltrated the athletic culture, not just with your name, image, and likeness, but scholarship money. And I am a big advocate for teaching our kids that there is a possibility for them to play or participate in some capacity at the next level, and that there's money available to that. And I impart that into my coaches as well, because we not only have the opportunity to have quite a few first generation kids going to college, but we also have the opportunity to help take away that financial burden of how am I going to pay for it? What kind of job am I going to have to get to sustain my time in college when I'm there? You know, how is it going to affect my family one way or the other? And so it's a responsibility that I take really, really seriously. And it's a responsibility that I try to encourage the people that I manage and the people that I lead to take seriously, because we have these kids for 4 years, but they have a whole lifetime after they leave here. And so what are we doing to help them be successful once they leave here, getting into school, getting that degree that they're shooting for, understanding that they are very much capable of accomplishing getting a degree, being in college, putting in the work to stay there and making the commitment to finish. And then, you know, showing them how they can make money, how they can be financially responsible, how they can use themselves and their image and things like that to generate sometimes an income that will serve not only them, but their family in the process. And then what does that do for the community that they leave behind? I'm a huge advocate for kids that go off to college to come back to their community, come and work out in our facilities, come and talk to our kids, come and, you know, keep in touch with your own old teammates that are a grade or two lower than you, so that you can continue to encourage and then let them know what life is like outside of high school. And that's a big thing that I just think is so important. We have a huge responsibility to help kids beyond the 4 years that we are with them. And we have a huge responsibility to help them find their success in whatever avenue they choose. Obviously, college isn't for everybody, right? But there are things that kids want to do that athletics teaches them that they are able to do it, that they have the resources and they have the backing, the support behind them to kind of motivate them along the way.
So good. So good. Thanks so much for the answer, Rochelle.
Mhm.
We've got a couple more questions for you, but before we get to them, we're going to take a quick break.
Okay.
Friends, one of the themes we're hearing today is about the power of caring adults showing up consistently in the lives of young people.
And if you're passionate about helping the next generation thrive, we encourage you to subscribe to the Next Gen Insider from Growing Leaders. It's filled with practical tools, resources, and encouragement for anyone investing in students and young leaders.
We will make sure to include the link for you to subscribe in today's show notes.
All right, let's jump back into our conversation with Rochelle. Rochelle, you've spent decades. Isn't that weird to say? Because you look like you maybe spent 10 minutes, but it's fine. We'll embrace the decades. But you spent more than 2 decades investing in students, and you've seen them develop as leaders. You even mentioned earlier about like how, you know that those athletes that you get to serve, the families you get to walk along with, like those families are creating environments for young people to become the next doctor, the next teacher, the next lawyer, the next leader of a maintenance team. Like people are doing different things than the next person in the military, right? Mm-hmm. Looking back, are there any moments or stories that really just remind you of why your role matters so much? Maybe it was a young person that came to you, and maybe it wasn't even anything about the sport you were coaching, or your role as assistant athletic director, but it was just a community, an environment where you provided community for them to connect with you. Yeah.
So interesting enough, I've been in the same district for my entire career.
Okay.
And I am now at the point where I'm running into kids I've taught.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just been, I think when it first happened for me, I was just completely kind of blown away because I wasn't expecting it. I received an email from a former athlete that had just recently been hired into the district. And she wanted me to know how much of an impact I made on her from when I was a 6th grade math teacher teaching her. And she said, I will always remember that you said girls can do math too. And I majored in mathematics. She said, and I became a teacher. I'm coaching, and I cannot wait to compete against you so that you can see what you helped create in me.
That's so awesome.
That was something that I never expected to hear.
Yeah.
A lot of times I think when kids graduate and move on, they kind of forget about us, right? Sometimes we're in people's lives for a season. And I hope I did my job in watering, this young person in my path in their life. But to hear things like that and to see, other adults now come up to me and say, hey, man, you taught me volleyball, or right now there are 2 people on our staff that, I taught when they were in middle school. And so it's just the most amazing thing. And of course, the community that I live in, I see a lot of people around the area, and I've had parents come up to me and tell me that, they have another little one on the way and they're waiting to get to the high school or the junior high at the time so they can, have their experience with me as well, which kind of scares me because Lord have mercy, how long am I going to need to do this? But it is really, really fulfilling to know that, people had a positive experience. And I was able to be of some service or be a positive resource for them during their time in my classroom or in my practice sessions or just, in whatever environment we were able to share.
That's great. And it sounds like you were just saying something so matter-of-factly, like it's just the way it is. Girls can do math too. And it transformed that young woman's life. Mm-hmm. That's really, really great. Thanks, Rochelle. Mm-hmm.
So, Rochelle, the people listening to this podcast are educators, they're parents, they're leaders, that people who are invested in the world of education. But we often find, and I'm sure you have found, that people who maybe are near the school, but not necessarily near the athletic department, maybe don't fully understand really all the impacts that are happening. So as somebody who works close with these student athletes, with the coaches, the families, the administrators, broader community, what do you wish more people understood about the role that athletics can play in helping students thrive?
So I wish people I actually wish people understood that being an athlete is a stressful activity for a lot of young men and women that oftentimes start playing sports when they're 3, 4, 5 years old, right? They're constantly being corrected in some action that they're doing. They're often compared to somebody next to them, whether it's on their team or not, or on an opposing team. They're often being corralled to try something new or to change some technique of what they've been doing and how they've been doing it. They've often been given, a short amount of time to recover from a disappointment or a short amount of time to make a major adjustment to keep themselves in the game. And with all that comes a lot of instances where athletes close themselves off too much, right? And their identity again becomes tied to an outcome, or it becomes tied to a win or a loss. And the biggest thing that I want people to understand about, athletes and competition is there are so many victories to celebrate along the way. And if we teach them to do that, and if we can get people to understand what it takes for a 8-year-old all the way up to a 28-year-old to put their mind, their body, their emotions on the line each and every day to accomplish something, sometimes for somebody else, right? There's quite a few people that play sports because it's an expectation, or because their parents did it and were successful at it, or because they're tall, or all kind of reasons, right? I think you guys both referenced that you had to examine why you were really wanting to be a cheerleader, or why you were wanting to go back out for soccer. And is it something that you were honestly wanting to commit time to? Well, some students have to. It's the expectation. They want to please. They want to show up for their family. They want to show up for their friends. And so it's really nurturing that student athlete and understanding that they are taking a lot on their shoulders and they are showing up every day. So celebrating the progress, celebrating who they're becoming along that journey, it's just a huge thing.
You've got my fingers just going. I'm writing notes every time you say something. We get to talk to so many different educators and leaders of the next generation. And you had shared with us just that such practical, organic things that you say and you do over and over again. And I hope that our listeners are like grabbing that. Like, it's not complicated. It's not complex. It's showing up authentically, using what you've learned over your lifetime and applying it, right? Because
Yes.
like you shared with us the story of your dad. When you think about the next generation now, and you think about the students you've coached over the years, what brings you hope? What brings you hope for this generation, and who they are and who they're becoming?
Well, what I love about this next generation is that they are learning their value earlier. And so that they're starting to understand what they can accomplish a lot sooner, rather than having to be convinced that they are good enough, that they are strong enough, that they are powerful enough, right? They are understanding their values so much sooner. And in doing that, they're able to develop a resiliency a lot sooner. Being a female athlete comes with quite a few challenges, obviously. And our society has now started to embrace celebrating the female athlete and empowering the female athlete and things of that nature. So because that's happening so often now, these young ladies are starting to see themselves in strong women that look like them, that sound like them, that like the things that they like. And so they're able to say, okay, yeah, I can do this. I don't have to be ashamed. I don't have to worry. I don't have to be fearful of anything. There's a space that I can take up because somebody else has done it before me. And so I think that's the thing that I'm most excited about with the next generation. And the sooner that we have girls, the sooner that we have young women and young men know their value and really hold true to who they are, they can understand how showing up for themselves is just as important as showing up for a team. In many instances, a lot of student athletes learn how to show up for a team before they learn how to show up for themselves, right? Even if you think about them being in a classroom, if a kid is not as successful in a classroom, sometimes it's not as much of an issue for them because nobody is affected but them. And if they have a low self-esteem or low self-efficacy, it's just par for the course, right? But most people want to show up for somebody else. They want that validation for somebody else. So it's just understanding their value and things of that nature earlier can just help kind of generate an atmosphere and a culture of, just stronger, more confident, more resilient athletes going forward.
So good. I'm like Gina. I'm taking notes too. So, Man, just really appreciate your words there and
Thank you.
the perspective that you're giving all of us about how we think about students, how we influence students, the ways in which it's happening in ways that we maybe don't even recognize. So, Rochelle, thank you so much. It's been an incredible, incredible conversation. I'm grateful for the reminder that athletics is not just about competition, although that's pretty important.
We want to win.
But they are ultimately about formation, though, right? About how we shape the students that we're leading. And it happens in so many more ways in the school than just the classroom. So really, really appreciate it.
And, Rochelle, what we really appreciate about your perspective is just that, athletic programs aren't only about developing athletes. Andrew and I can attest to that as being former athletes. I know everybody's watching and they're like, of course you were. You look like physical specimens that were premier.
That people say that to me all the time. Can you
I
believe
know. We go into coffee shops and they're like, why were you not an Olympian? I get that often. But honestly, I bet you we could tell so many stories about how athletics in particular help develop the people that we are and the leaders that we are. I joke with my children's coaches and I say, I might have been an okay athlete, but I make really good ones. I make great athletes. But throughout this conversation, you've just been a delight. And we've heard how sports can become a place where students learn leadership and service, resilience, and confidence that lasts far beyond school. Thank you for adding so much value to us today.
No problem.
Yeah. All right, listeners, this brings us to our final segment. It is, of course, time for DMI. DMI stands for Don't Miss It, where Gina and I both highlight one thing from today that we think you should miss. And Gina, we've both been taking notes. I know we've got thoughts. I'm going to let you go first and hope that you don't steal mine.
Thank you. I appreciate giving me the win for today because I already know that you wrote this one down and I'm taking it anyway. There's a second one that I could say too, and you probably wrote that one down too, but I'm going to go with this first one. Okay. Service over self. Service over self. That actually was shared early in our conversation with Rochelle. And I've shared with you guys time and time again about my mom, Nana. And she was a teacher and she instilled in me and my brother service over self. And the fact that we can experience that even through athletics. Because athletics is so much about competition that having a coach create an environment where you can be a high-performing athlete, you can win, you can be competitive, but you also understand the value of service over self. That's really transformational. And just the reminder with that athletics can help you build primary skills. I had somebody say that to me recently, and I was like, yeah, we need to quit calling them soft skills. Primary skills so that you can become leaders sooner, and it gives you skills and the foundation that you can build on for a lifetime. Like, that was just my little nugget. That was one of them that I got from Rochelle. How about you? How about you, Andrew?
Well, I did write that down. You were exactly right.
I saw you.
We both were like, what I want to double click on, and this is actually what I was planning to say because I love this. I have never thought about it this way. Rochelle highlighted there towards the end of our conversation that if a student doesn't bring their A game to their studies, it doesn't really affect anybody but them. Right. In sport, especially team sports, it's exactly the opposite, right? If one person on the team is not giving the same effort as everybody else, the whole team is affected by that. But here's my insight. Are you ready for this? Life is not a solo sport. It's a team sport. And the reality is, in just doing academics, we're not actually getting kids ready for the ways in which the people around them are reliant upon them, right? I got a team at my home. I got a team at my work. I got a team in all aspects of my life, and people are counting on me and showing up for other people matters. And if life is a team sport, you might argue that athletics is one of the best preparations for the kind of expectations that we're going to have on us as we go into adulthood. So learning to show up for other people. Years ago, I got to spend some time with people from the Pat Summit foundation. And one of the things she used to say is how much she loves a practice player. That's what she called them. And a practice player is somebody who probably gets 0 to just a few minutes at the end of the game playing time, but they are one of the most important people on your team because they show up at practice and they make it tough on everybody else. And they make it where the starters become the best versions of themselves. And when they're on the bench, they're the first one up, cheering people on. And that practice player ends up becoming the difference maker on the team without ever hitting the court. And that is exactly like all of my favorite people in my life take that same spirit as well, right? Of course, I'm talking about you, Gina.
I 100% think that you remembered that just to talk about me because I was definitely the practice player. I was the practice player. I love it.
Yeah. Well, you're saying that about your playing time. I'm saying that about your attitude. And
Thank you, dear.
don't we all love being around those people? I've talked to multiple coaches who actually said, Rochelle, you probably have seen this as well. They have students, athlete students who became the team captain, even though they weren't a starter on the team because of how influential they were from the bench. That to me is exactly what we're talking about when we say life is a team sport. Kids who get that are going to be just fine, whether or not they get to keep playing after high school.
Rochelle, I think that Andrew, before he said this last part about, and if listeners, if you don't know who Pat Summitt is, please Google all hell Pat
She's
Summitt.
the greatest.
Yes, but I think that Andrew wrote your foreword for your book. I don't know. I just listened back to the interview. As he was talking, I was like, it feels like a foreword. It feels like a foreword for her book. You might not have thought about writing a book.
Give me a call, Rochelle.
Okay.
Just saying, he can help you make it happen. Just saying.
Oh, man, this is so good. So good. All right, Gina, we're here at the end. This has been an incredible, incredible conversation. We got to say a huge thank you, Rochelle Harris from Mayde Creek High School. Thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you even more so for the investment that you're making in your students and in your community. It's been incredible.
Thank you so much.
Indeed. Friends, thank you for joining us today on this episode of School on a Mission podcast. Now, before you head to your next podcast, we've got a little challenge for you. Grab a pen, a notebook. I know those archaic things. Maybe you have a device, your phone, your tablet. Just write something down. And that something should be an action step that you're going to take after listening to our podcast. What's one thing that you're going to do after being inspired by Rochelle and her story? What's one thing that you can do, a person that you can reach out to, a book that you can read, a topic that you can research more about? Do you got it? Great. Now, take that. Hold yourself accountable and also share it with us. Let us help hold you accountable. DM us because we'd like to see what you're doing and grow with you.
And of course, folks, don't forget to subscribe to the Next Gen Insider from Growing Leaders. It is in today's show notes along with other additional resources.
Until next time, friends, stay curious, stay bold, and keep leading your school on a mission.